Hi guys, hope you're all well. Today we're going to have a little play with some of the interference mica powders. There's loads of different names for these mica powders, guys. Some people call them interference, some people call them duos, some people call them hollows, but there's loads of different brands on the market as well. So Cernit do one which they call a duo, and I don't know if you'll be able to pick it up on the camera, but this is like a pearly pink flash of colour. I don't think you'll be able to pick it up in the lid, it's really hard to see the colours. Anyway, I'll show you a couple. So Cernit do them, Pearlex do them. This is an interference green, so it's green and pink, quite funky. This is just an Imagination Crafts one, but there's loads of different brands out there that do them, but I picked some up from, let me just mop that mica up I've spilled. I picked some up from ALIEXPRESS, and they are just the nail art micas which are here. So I think you can see the interference working there, but what I did was I put some on a piece of, can you see the flashes? There you go. Put some on a bit of white clay. Just want to make sure you can see the flash. There we go. I put some on some white clay, and I put some on some black clay. Now look at the difference, how they change dependent on the colour of clay you put them on. So what I'm going to do today, I've been looking for a stencil that would enhance what I wanted to do, if that makes sense. So I've got this dotty stencil here, and there's all different sizes of dots on it. This is a PC UK stencil, and that's what I'm going to use. So we're just going to do two veneers, if you like, one in white, one in black. I'm going to make a really quick pendant out of them both in the same colour, in white and black, and then I'm going to do some other bits with it, some beads, maybe do something with the scraps. So I'm going to add that video on as a part B or a part 2. So today we're just going to do the veneers and make a quick pendant with them, and then I'll carry on filming for a part 2 with the other bits. So what you're going to need is some sort of stencil. As I said before, I wanted to use different sizes of circles, because I'm going to move the stencil and get them overlapping, and I thought, I'm actually using opaline clay, this Cernit opaline, and this is just black Sculpey Premo, and you're just going to need a soft brush for applying it, a bit of paper for burnishing over the top, and of course guys, we'll need to varnish it to protect the mica. So I'm just going to use, now I've got two colours here that are almost the same. Let me just double check, because I put dots on. Yeah, my 3 and my 4, I numbered the pots, are almost the same colour, so I'm going to leave number 3 out and just use 4 colours. So I'm going to use, in fact, let me pick the black up. I'm going to use this green and gold, this blue, this pinky purple, and this bright green, and I'm going to apply it in different layers, so they'll merge a little bit. So I'm just going to tap my powders, let's put them in order, just to make sure that there's no escaping bits. I'll do them one by one. Soft brush, stencil, and I'm just going to pop my stencil over, oh, bit of Doris fluff, pop my stencil over, just a light press. I don't really, we are going to burnish it guys, but I'm just doing a light press to get it to tack to my clay. And I'm just going to get some of this powder and get it brushed in. And I'm being reasonably liberal with it guys. I want a decent amount of it to cover. I could probably do it with a bigger brush, but I'm not going to change my mind now. And when I've got a bit of kitchen towel to the side of me, just to knock my brush back after I've covered with the mica, and any loose bits I'm just sweeping down the stencil just to, you know, so there's not as much mess really. But I'm just making sure that my circles are really well burnished with the mica. I'm not sure if you're going to pick that up too good on the camera, but it will show up better on the black guys. So I'm just getting all this mica to sweep in, working my way down, doing my little dots. Let's just bring a bit more in, just making sure that stencil's stuck down. Quite therapeutic this guys. Yes, somebody had shared a picture in group a while ago and it just looked like oil. You know, when you spill oil on water, you see those little rainbow puddles as we call them. So that's what I wanted to try and recreate, I suppose. So I just thought I would have a little go with these mica powders and do this. And what we're going to do is we're going to move the stencil with the next colour so that the circles start to overlap. Just make sure that's all burnished in with my little brush. And I'm not going to over worry about it, just as long as each circle's got a decent amount and there's no bits collected anywhere, if that makes sense. And just make sure there's no loose on my stencil before I pick it up. Now look, it's all sparkled over there already. So I'm just going to pick that stencil up. Can you make out the dots? I think you can just about make them out. You'll probably see it better on this black, to be honest. So let's pop this down on the black. Just gently tack my stencil down. Now I know it's not going to move. And then onto the black. Now you can see it a lot more on the black, can't you? I'm doing both colours because I just want to see how they both look. But it's mainly this, the white I had the idea with, but I just thought I would try it with the black as well. I may switch this brush out guys to a bigger brush because it's taking ages and it's actually flicking loads of mica around, which I didn't really want to do. Just make sure everything's saturated. You just burnish with your brush, it really goes in. Okie dokie. And I was thinking about cutting it in between, you know, coming back when it was all done, but you can always fast forward it guys if you don't want to watch this bit. but I just thought I'd leave it in and let you see the process of what I'm doing. So just make sure those bits have got plenty on, and I think I will swap my brush out to a bigger brush. Let's just get this colour burnished in first. Okay, so that's that number one done. I don't know if you can pick it out, the difference, but on here it's like greeny gold, but on here it's quite pink and gold, which is kind of funky. Let me just wipe that brush off, find a bigger, I'll just go with a mop brush I think, guys. Just make sure that it's a clean mop brush. Okay, so let's just get this excess off. Yeah, this bigger brush will be better. Just want to make sure there's not too much excess clay, mica on the stencil. Let's lift that off. I'm just going to bat the stencil over there, out the way. I've got a little wet wipe, so I will just nip in and wipe up this excess that's floating around. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to now move the stencil. So I'm going to maybe bring it down there a bit. And again, just patting it so that it tacks down to the clay. And we'll move on to the next colour, which is like a bluey colour. I just get a little bit on my brush to start off with, and we're just going to lay this colour over the top now. Get that burnished in. It's much better with a bigger brush, guys. It doesn't seem to flick it around as much either. So just make sure that that's burnished in really well over the top of that one. I do want to make sure that there's plenty on, but I also want to make sure that it's burnished really well in. There we go. Let's just make sure there's no excess on the stencil for when I pick it up. Pick the stencil up. This is going to look quite funky. I've got a little hair stuck there. And then I'll pop the stencil over onto this side. And again, just giving it a little press, just to make sure it's stuck down to my clay, doesn't start flapping around. And I've got loads of excess here, so I'm just going to pick that up first. Waste not, want not. There we go. Just get a bit on my brush, get it swirling in. On this black it looks amazing, doesn't it? Again, I'm just grabbing that excess off the table. Getting that all buffed in. nice and bonny. Okay, let's just lift the stencil off. I'm just giving it a bat to one side, guys, just to get any loose particles off. Give my brush a scrub on my paper. Pop in with my wet wipe. Not that it really matters, guys. I'm just trying to be clean as I'm working. Just so I'm not getting too much mess. It's all over me. Okay, next colour. Now, like I say, I'm doing 4 colours because I've got them. You know, you do whatever you like to do. I think this is the pinky one, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so now I'm just going to move the stencil again. I think I'll just move up to there with it. Oh, I've got a bit of a hair there. Let's get rid of you. Let's pop it there. What I'm trying to do is fill the gaps. With the mica. There, that seems pretty stable. And of course now with overlapping, and this is quite a strong colour as well, but we'll see what happens. Just overlapping, we get this petrol. It just looks like spilled oil, doesn't it, or spilled petrol, when you see it in a puddle. I can hear my husband whistling outside. I think I'm really gonna like this effect, guys. Just a simple veneer. Could look quite Christmassy actually, couldn't it? You know, if you did it for, you know, snowflake backgrounds or something. Or try different shapes, you know, doing little stars or something similar. Okay, I think that's buffed in nicely. Let's just get the excess off that stencil and I'm not traipsing it across the desk. Oh, this is going to look really cool. Don't know if you guys are getting the effect on the white, because it'll be hard for you to see, but you will see it when I do it on. Let's get rid of that big one on here. Let's do it there. Again, just pop it, pressing this stencil down a little bit, not so it marks the clay, just so it tacks to it. Again, I'm going to pick some of this excess up from around this one. Let's get this burnished in. That's my third colour. Get the excess off on the paper. Okie dokie. Oh, look at that. Pop that stencil to one side. Quick dust around. just so I'm not dragging my elbows in it. And of course I'm covered in it as usual. Okay, now I've nearly got all the spots filled, so I'm hoping with this last bit of colour that there won't be any gaps. There may be a couple, but you know, once we've burnished and such, it'll probably be fine. My stencil is now not wanting to stick, but again, not going to worry about it, guys. As long as it doesn't shift, we'll be fine. Last colour, and this is quite a strong interference green, I think. I'm just going to dot a bit of it around, and let's get that swirled in. I think this is going to look fabulous, even if I say so myself. I love experimenting, guys. It's my favourite thing to do. Just playing, seeing what happens, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but you know, generally it does if you put a bit of planning in place. Okay, I'm just going to put a tiny bit more on, just to make sure that it's peeping through our colours. And there we go. Now what I'm going to do is just get my brush and lightly sweep, just to get a bit of mica into any of those little spots that might be left over. Not covering them, just giving them a little bit of twinkle so there isn't too much of a gap. There we go. So that's that one finished. And again, guys, I'm sorry, you probably can't really see much, can you, on yours, on the white. But let's go in with this on the black and hope my stencil will stick. There's a few spots there. I think I've done it. And let's get a bit of this green on the black. I think that's plenty on there, so let's get that stencil off. Come on, put that to one side for a wash, and you can see easily there's just a couple of little bits on the black. I'm not going to cover them entirely. I'm just going to make sure there's just a tiny bit of mica on them so that they don't stick out as much. There we go. Okay, now what I am going to do, guys, because you know what this mic is like, let's pop that brush to one side for a wash. What I am going to do is I'm going to pick these veneers up, just put them to one side and clean my desk. then I am not batting mica everywhere. I could have done it on a piece of paper, I suppose, to catch it, but oh, can't get this lid back on. Let's get them put away, then they're not going everywhere. Okay, I'll just pick these up, guys, have a little clean up, make sure I'm not covered in it, and then we'll come back and in fact, before we do that, let's just burnish. Let's just burnish this down, then we know there's no loose on the top. Got a little bit of a hair there, got you. Just burnish this down. And just to make sure it's nicely pushed into that clay. Oh, static. And let's do it on this one. Okay, lovely. All that stuff needs to go for a wash. Right, I'll get this picked up out the way. Excuse me, get it picked up and out the way while I just have a little tidy up, guys. I'll be back in a sec. Okay guys, had a clean up, still covered in mica, but it's better. I'm just going to lift these up so I can get them to flash in the light. So there's one, and let's pick the white up. There's two, and what I'm going to do is just cut enough of these two off to make a couple of pendants with you, because I'm going to use some of the other bits to do other stuff. So I need just a small square of each. In fact, if I line them up a bit better, I can just do one cut across, can't I? Where's my blade? Okay, so I'll just chop that off there, put these pieces to one side for part 2. There we go. Okay, so I've got a bit of black clay as a backing for this piece. Let's just pop that down, and I've got a bit of white clay. Yeah, well, I'm using the opaline, aren't I? But I've just got a bit of opaline to back this piece. Let's see if I can get this off. This texture sheet might have been a bit deep, this one. It's the lace one that's in the giveaway, which I'll be drawing shortly, guys. Maybe in the next video I'll do the draw. Just wanted to give people a chance to do some comments. Okay, I'll just give this a little burnish to make sure it's stuck to my backing. Same with the black. I did cut, where did I put it? I cut, oh there it is, I cut one of my rubber gloves up ready. Well, vinyl gloves, just to dome it. And these are all on a 0 setting, by the way, guys. The veneer was on a 0 setting, which is the thickest on my pasta machine, and I passed the backing through, which takes it down a bit obviously because of the sheet, but that's on a 0 too. So let's just cut a nice circle out of this one. And let's cut a nice circle out of this one. There we go. Let's pop that in the bin because it's covered in mica. Get them bits put to one side. Now I may turn this into a donut actually. I might keep the white one and put a bail on the back and turn the black one into a donut. Let's find a little hole. Don't want a big one, that one will do. Let me just bring that bit of glove back to do this. I'm just going to push a little hole into this one. Let's make sure it's in the right position. Oh, I caught my nail there. Just smooth that down, although it's going to be varnished, so that'll hide it, won't it? Just going to put my cutter back over and make sure I haven't distorted that shape when I put the cutter on. Okay, pop that out, you go. Get these crumbs off. Just get my little egg poachers out to give them a bit of a dome. Let's get this one picked up. Let's pop you on there. Bit of paper. And of course it doesn't want to stick. But that's fine. I've got a bit of rippling around that hole which I'm not keen on. Let's see if I can smooth it out with a tool. Got all these tools and can never find the one I want. Where are you? Oh, there you are. Oh, and here's Doris. She'll be striking in any second because the window isn't wide enough. Just going to go around this hole with my tool. Hang on, Doris. Just to get that ripple out. Let's give it a smooth. That's a bit better. Okay. Let's pick the white one up. Get rid of them crumbs. Oh, I seem to have a bit of something stuck from the last bake. Come on, off you get. Don't want to have black clay embedded in this, do I? Let's give it a wipe. Okay. Oh, can't pick it back up now. Pop this on. Give it a little help to dome around. Just run my finger around there, make sure it's a nice tidy edge. Okay, so I'll get this popped in the oven, guys, and then we'll come back and varnish them. See you in a sec. Hi guys, we're all baked. Here's the black one. here's the white one. I'm hoping you can pick up. It's quite hard to see. It's going to be horrendous to try and photograph, but it looks really cool. Definitely an interesting effect. With the scraps that was left over, I just made a couple of little pendants. Oh, throwing them around. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to resin this one because there's a couple of marks on the surface and the resin might help with that. But I'm just going to varnish the white. So I'll just pop them to one side and let's resin this one first. These are little stands I made out of raw clay. Well, baked, but it was raw. I have a little how-to about resining. If you want to go and have a look, I'll leave a little link thing. But yeah, let's see which brush I want to use. I think I'll use this one. And I always wet my brush in a little bit of acetone. Then I'm not introducing any more bubbles to the resin. And this is the resin I use. I'm just going to apply a thin coat first, which is generally what I do. One decent thin coat, and then I can, you know, get it to dome if I want to, or the such later. Let's just, yeah, that resin's helping to just hide a couple of those marks in it. Let's get around the edge. Make sure I've got a decent coat on it. No bubbles. Okay, I'll just go and pop that in. It's just behind me, I won't be a sec. While that's doing its due, let's varnish this one. Just trying to get my brush to stay in my pot and it doesn't want to. Just clean that brush off. I can just pop it down then. Okay, so this is the opaline one. Again, I'll pop it on a stand just because with my hands I find it easier to work with. And I'm just going to use this Cernit glossy. You have to bake this for a few minutes after you've used it or after you've applied it. Obviously there's loads of different surface treatments out there, guys. Just pick your favourite and go for it. Just making sure my brush is coated before I pick some up. I just go over with a thin coat first to make sure that I've got the surface coated and the sides. And then I put a bit more of a coat on. It's like put a blob in the middle, a bit like I do with resin, I suppose. Just put a thicker coat on now. And I know a lot of people worry about brush marks and the such, but I don't never seem to have a problem. I use nail brushes, they're quite fine. I'm just going to drag that back over the top, just where it's a little bit thicker. And then what I'll do is I'll just let that sit a minute, and then I'll put another coat on. In fact, should we do the, I'll do these with resin, I think they'll look prettier with just a fine coat of resin. I have got another stand somewhere, but I don't know where it is, so I'm just gonna put a little pop of that on. And just take it down the side. I don't really want to get it on my bezel, just want to get it on the cab in the middle. Okay. Oh, that's another reason why I have stands, guys. Just check that that's got a coating all over it and there's no divots from where I've just dropped it, like there. See if I can get that bit out of there. Okay, I'll just pop that in to set. And let's do the black one. Again, just a little drop, guys. Don't really need to dome it or anything. I just want to give it a nice coating. This black is really popping now. There's some resin on it. Okay, it's all covered. I'll pop this in. Oh, I've just noticed a dribble. Get that brush cleaned off. Okay, this should be okay for another coat now, and then I'll pop it back in the oven for 10 minutes. Just to make sure that it's cured properly. I'll just let it sit, and then if there is any brush marks, they tend to sort themselves out, really. Okay, guys, shall let that bake off, let the other stuff set, and we'll come back and we'll finish off. See you in a minute. Hi guys, so we're all done. I've just popped a bit of sari ribbon on that one, and here's the two little ones with just a touch of resin on them. This one here, where I made it with the scraps, actually looks like opal. It's quite cool. And here's the big one. I really don't know if you're going to make out the mica behind. It's so subtle but unusual. I really like how that one's turned out. I've just got a bit of Boona cord here, guys. I'll just pop it on a bit of cord. Maybe black isn't the best, but you can see I'll take a few photos. Hopefully I can catch this with the camera. But there you go, guys, just a quick idea with some mica and some stencils. I don't know what to call it, but it's cool, isn't it? A bit different, a bit of fun. Okay, I shall leave you all there. I'll be back in part 2 to make some bits with the bits we've got left over. I might do a bit of macrame, make a couple of beads, don't know yet, but I'm going to film that now, then my veneers don't get dry. So I shall see you all in the next video. Thanks guys. Bye.